Hi everyone, welcome back to Liz Sews. Today I'm going to be doing a very much requested tutorial, and that is for Simplicity 8228, and I will be showing view B, which is the racerback bralette. I have one of the old ones that I've sewn up here on my dress form. You can see that the real highlight of this pattern is definitely this racerback, which features a lot of the lovely scalloped lace. And then the front of the bra has sort of like a halter-ish look to it just because of the way the straps attach. I find this bra is really comfortable to wear, even though it doesn't do much in terms of shaping. It's very comfortable to wear, and it's especially nice in the summer. You can wear some of those more like breezy tank tops that sort of show off your bra, because this one has a lot of lovely scalloped details all around it. So the first thing we're going to need to do is obviously figure out what size we need to make. So you want to take your tape measure and you're going to measure just underneath the bust, and you want to pull it sort of snug and see what sort of numbers that you get there. Now this one does go off of a 4+ method. There's actually a chart in the pattern which shows you, like, if your bust measurement is this to this, then you will need this band size. So I'm going to pop up a picture of that chart in here so you guys can get a better idea of what size you need. For me, my underbust does measure about 33, so I will be using a 33.5, so I'm going to be using a 38 band size. The next measurement you're going to need is around the fullest part of your bust. You want to make sure that the tape measure is fairly level to the ground when you do this, and you want to go over the most tissue that you can there. So when I take that measurement on myself, I'm about a 38.5 around my full bust. So what you want to do is take the band measurement, so not the actual number that you measured, but the band that you were going to use, so in my case a 38, and subtract that from your full bust measurement, and you're going to find a difference, and then that difference corresponds to a cup size, and I will try to put the chart up in here. So like I've said, for myself, my underbust was 33.5, so I'm going to use the 38 band. My full bust was 38.5, so the difference between 38.5 and the 38 band is 1/2 inch, so I'm going to be using an A cup. So I will be doing a 38A. This pattern does come in quite a large range of sizes. Let's see. So we got, starts at 32A and then goes all the way up to a 42 double D. So now that we know what size we need to cut out, let's take a look at all of the different pattern pieces. So here we have all the pieces to Simplicity 8228, and I will be doing the racerback version. So this was actually one of the first bra that I ever made. So obviously it's not too difficult, or it didn't scare me off from making more bras, but there definitely are a lot of pieces involved. Now, one thing I will say is that the directions recommend that you use like a spray adhesive, like 505, and just adhere the stretch mesh lining to the lace before you cut anything out. I personally don't like doing that just because I think it's wasteful. This mesh can sometimes be quite pricey, so I would rather not waste it. So I always cut the pieces out individually in both the lace and the lining material. So the first pieces we're going to have are the strap pieces, and you're going to want to cut 4 of those. When I'm laying the strap pattern down on the lace, you just want to make sure that the edge of the pattern piece lines up with the lowest point of the scallops on the lace. So 4 of those. You're going to need 2 each of the outer cup and the inner cup, and I'm going to cut that both in lace and the lining material. Then you're going to need the front band, and actually this pattern piece, you're meant to cut 2 of them and then notch it and sew it together. I actually find that I like this a lot better when I cut it on the fold. So I've just drawn a fold line in 1/4 of an inch, which is where the seam allowance is. And I cut this on the fold from there. And the reason that I like doing that is because it gives you a nice clean line across the front, whereas you're more likely to like make mistakes if you have a seam here and then you're sewing it together. You might have the scallops not lining up exactly where they should be or something like that. So I always just like to cut it on the fold because I think it gives it a cleaner appearance. The back is comprised of 2 rectangles, and I use the same pattern piece for both rectangles because the pattern piece is the same. So once again, you're going to want to do it in each one in lace and lining. And then the racer back is formed out of 2 different triangle sort of pieces, but you need to cut 2 of each in both the lining and the lace. So the two smaller triangles will form the bottom of the racer back, and then the larger triangles with that sort of scoop will form the top of the racer back. So when you sew all 4 of those triangles together, you get that really nice shape. Now I will say that this pattern uses a lot of lace. I think I used close to 2 yards of lace to cut everything out. And the reason that you need so much is just because you're really using the scalloped edge to the fullest potential, like it is on the top and the bottom of the back and the bottom of the front and along all of the top of the cups and the straps and this racer back. So you're really using a lot of that scalloped edge. So I definitely recommend getting a lace that has scallops on both sides, because if you only had a scallop on one side, you might need 4 yards of lace. So yes, this is all of the pieces, and we will get started on the sewing. So the first things you're going to need to do is get everything set up. As long as your machine has a straight and zigzag stitch, you should be fine. Also, you'll see that I have a walking foot attached to my machine, and that just helps, especially when you have a lot of these very thin, slippery layers, and especially with lace. I think the walking foot helps a lot to make sure stuff just stays in place and doesn't really move around at all. For thread, I would definitely recommend using a polyester thread. You know, cotton and silk threads are great, except not in lingerie, because you just put a lot of tension on all of those seams, and the polyester thread is a lot more robust and can handle that sort of strain. So I will be using, I think it's a Coats and Clark's thread, but whatever sort of like polyester thread that you prefer. And then lastly, in terms of needles, I'll be using a Microtex needle. You can get these at pretty much any craft supply store. I use the Schmetz. I actually buy mine in bulk, so I bought a case of, I think this is 50 or 100 needles. But I pretty much use these exclusively for all my sewing, so that's why I ended up buying a big set of them. So Microtex needles should be the best to work with any sort of like lace or micro mesh like this. So the first step in the bra is to form the cups, and we're going to take the inner and outer cup along with their respective linings. Let's see, along with their respective linings. And then we're going to sew this together so that all of those seams are fully encased. So I like to have the bulk of the seam be on the outer cup. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up the inner cup with its lining. And you might have a little bit of that lining sort of like peeking out on the edge, and that's okay. We can always trim that back later. And then I'm going to take the lace, and I'm going to line the lace over top of that inner cup. So the inner and outer lace, and we're just going to pin that together. So once we have that pinned in place, we can flip it around to the other side. And we have right now the inner cup lining, and then we want to just take our outer cup lining and place that on top. I'm going to go ahead and repeat that for the second cup, and then we're going to sew with a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance straight stitch all the way down this curve. So here we have with that seam sewn into place. And so we should have 2 pieces of lining and then 2 pieces of lace. So if you want to open this up, you're going to grab the 2 that are in the middle, and then you're going to have the other 2 come out around the outside. And what you should have is your completed cup, and then you can see how the seams are all inside of there. You don't have any like exposed seams. So the next thing that we are going to do is take a line of zigzag stitches and just go down this seam line to the right of where it is, where the bulk of all of that seam allowance is, just to keep everything flat and make sure it stays in place later on. So you can see when I set this up on the machine, I take this seam and I line it up against the edge of my presser foot, and then that's where I'm going to continue sewing it down here. So once you've done that, it should look a little something like this. You won't really see the stitches very much from the outside just because the lace does a good job of hiding that. But from the inside you can see we just have a line of zigzag stitches keeping everything flat and in place. So I'm going to repeat that for the second cup as well, and so you have 2 cups that are mirror images of each other. So the next thing that we're going to do is to attach these 2 cups together. So you want to take the 2 inner cups, and that's going to be like the smaller of the 2 pieces. You can see how the outer cup is a little bit longer. So you want to make sure you have the 2 inner cups, and then we are just going to put them right sides together and then sew along this straight line. So here we've sewn that in place. Now I haven't figured out a way to get these seams hidden yet. I've made this bra 2 or 3 times, but these I never seem to get hidden. So what I'm going to do is just like kind of what we did on the other seam right here, is we are going to zigzag stitch this down, and hopefully that's good enough, even though we do have some raw edge showing. And I'll probably zigzag stitch it from the top just to get it, make sure that looks the best on the top. So here it is, it's been zigzagged down, and then I just trimmed off any little excess of that seam allowance that I had beyond my zigzag stitch, and can barely see that from the front, but it should make that pretty firm and stable. So that completes our cup. Now we're going to put in, I guess it's considered the band, that the front band that will attach to these cups. So this is the piece that, if you'll remember, originally we're supposed to sew 2 pieces together, but I've instead cut it on the fold so that I have 1 piece. I just think it makes the lines look a lot cleaner on the front. So I just have 1 piece for mine. What we're going to do again is we're going to try to hide all of those seam allowances. We're going to pin the lace to the lace on the front, and then pin the lining to the lining on the back. It does get a little bit tricky when you get to this pivot point. So what I like to do is pin the point first, like there, and this is definitely where you want to sink your needle and then sort of rotate your fabric when you're sewing. So once you have it all pinned, it should look like this. You have your lining pinned to your lining side of the upper bra, and the lace pinned to the lace side of your upper bra. So we're just going to do a straight stitch at 1/4 of an inch right down here. We're going to sink our needle when we hit this peak, and then sort of rotate our fabric and then continue going. So I just put that seam into there. It's probably easier to see from this side. And now all we have to do is take the lining and fold that out, and take the lace and fold that out. So just like we've done with all of our previous seams, we're going to go back through and do a line of zigzag stitching right along here, and that's going to just flatten everything down. but all of our seams are fully encased. So now we have all of that zigzag stitched down. On the inside, you can see it looks like this. And that is the whole front of the bra completed. So now we're going to move along to the back of the bra, which is the back band and that triangle sort of racer back portion. So for the back band, we have two long rectangles that should look sort of identical to each other, along with their matching linings. So I bet you know what we're going to do with this one. We're going to take one of them and line it up with its lining, and then we're going to place the lace right sides together, and we're going to place the lining right sides together, and we're going to stitch along that long edge with a 1/4 inch seam allowance on a straight stitch. So you want to make sure that you're stitching along your straight edge, not the scalloped edge of your lace. So here's what it looks like when we have sewn that together. And then of course we are just going to fold out our fabrics and do a line of zigzag stitching in there to keep everything flat. So here I've done the zigzag stitching, and this is what it looks like from the inside. So that's the bottom of the back done. Now we're going to work on the racer back portion. So the racer back is formed with 4 triangles. So you have, let's see, these smaller sort of triangles, that's going to be on the bottom. And then the larger triangles that have this sort of scoop is going to be what's going to run along the back of your neck, is that scoop. So we'll start off with these smaller triangles, and just like we have been doing this entire time, we are going to line them up. So I line the lace and the lining on one of them, and then lace to lace and lining to lining on the other. So I'm going to give that a straight stitch and then zigzag it flat. We'll also make the other one while we're at it. So we do lining and lace together on one side, then lace to lace, lining to lining, and on this one we're going to sew a straight stitch along the longer side that's not the scallops. So straight stitch, open it out, and zigzag it flat. So here we have our 2 triangles formed. You can see, so it looks like from the front and from the back. Now before we fix these 2 triangles together, we're going to finish this curved neck edge. So for finishing this off, we are going to need just a small length of picot elastic. So picot elastic, you have a plush side, you have a not so plush side, and then you have these like little sawtooth ridges, which are a decorative edge. So you want to make sure the plush is going to be against your body. So the way that we're going to apply this is we're going to have our bra facing right side up, so you want the lace facing out. I'm going to take my picot with the plush side facing up, and I'm going to align the straight edge of my elastic with the edge of my lace here. We're going to sew with a zigzag stitch as close as we can to that sawtooth edge. So let me set this up under my machine and I can show you how it should be aligned. So I have my machine set to the zigzag function. You can see we have the plush side facing up with a lace facing up, and I've just aligned this right there. And then I align the edge of my presser foot opening with with the sawtooth portion, and that gets me pretty close to where I want to be. So now that we have that sewn on, all we have to do is turn it to the inside. And then when I look at it from the other side of the fabric, we're going to sew this again in a second pass. This time we're going to go with a zigzag stitch as close as we can to the straight edge of the picot elastic. So once your picot is applied, it should look a little bit like this. You'll notice that it kind of like straightens out that edge, but definitely when you're wearing it and you have tension, you'll get that nice curve to form along the base of your neck. So the last thing that we need to do with our triangles is attach them together. So you're going to take the tiny side of the triangle and then you're going to lay these together with your lace touching. We're just going to sew 1/4 inch straight stitch and then fold out those seam allowances and flatten them with a zigzag. So once you do that, you should have something that looks like this. This is how it'll look on the outside. You can see how that forms your racer back. So the last thing that we need to do is just take a line of zigzag stitching and sort of like follow the scallops along the edge of the lace, and all that's going to do is tack down the lining to the lace itself. You don't have to do that. Actually, on some of my bras I've just left this open, and because these are both knit fabrics, it's never going to fray or anything like that. But I think if you stitch it down, it just gives it a little bit more durability. Okay, so now I've done that line of stitching. You can't really see it from the outside, but you can sort of see it on the inside where it's tacked in place. As long as you've done sort of like a halfway decent job of matching the thread to the lace, you shouldn't really be able to see it. So now we're going to attach the racer back portion to that back portion we made previously. So you can see the bottom of the racer back triangle is a cut edge, and then up here we have a scalloped edge. So what we're going to do is just overlap. So I'm going to find the center of my back. Okay. And line that up with the center of the racer back triangle, which should be fairly easy to tell because you have a seam there. And you just want to overlap the scallops on top of the racer back, and then we're just going to sew a line of stitching across to here, and I'm going to use a zigzag stitch for this. Okay, so now we have that all attached. That's what it's going to look like from the outside and from the inside. Now I'm just going to leave this raw right now because it's going to be covered up by elastic in a later step. So just leave that raw for the time being. So here's what the completed back of the bra should look like. So now we just need to attach the front to it. So we're going to take the front piece that we've made earlier and lay it on there lace to lace. And then we're just going to sew up the side seams right here with 1/4 inch of a straight stitch on both sides. So here's what it looks like stitched up. We are just going to sort of finger press that seam allowance open and then run along, zigzag down that just to keep it straight, and then trim off any excess. So I've already done that on the other side. I can show you. So this is the one that we still need to do, and then along the other side of the bra I've just run zigzag, trimmed that up a little bit to make it a little bit cleaner, and that's what it looks like on the outside. So now you should have something that looks like this. So we just need to make the straps that'll attach these two pieces together. So we have these 4 tiny rectangles to make those straps. I don't use lining in this. I just use the lace itself, and then I'm going to back it with some elastic material. So I'm going to take these. I'm going to make sure we have the two pretty sides of the lace touching, which we don't. So lace together and then sew 1/4 inch along the straight side with a straight stitch. So once you have those sewn, you can just open them up. And sort of finger press that seam allowance open if you can. If you can, it's not a big deal. So what I'm going to do is back these with some extra elastic. Now this is just really cheap strap elastic that I got off of eBay from a China seller. I definitely would not use this for a strap in most bras just because it has way too much stretch in it. But it's fine for this case, and I'm actually going to use it in the rest of our bralette once we attach the straps. So you just kind of want to lay it over that seam, and it's just going to reinforce it. So most of the tension is going to be on this elastic rather than the lace itself on the strap. And we're going to apply that down with a zigzag stitch. So that's what it's going to look like once it's applied. You can see it's sort of invisible from the outside, but it strengthens this a little bit more than just having lace there. So I wouldn't recommend going out and buying any elastic like this. I would actually just get a skinny elastic, so 1/4 of an 1/8 of an inch skinny elastic, and that's what I would use in this and the rest of the bralette. We have a pretty nice edge on the top of our cup here, so I am just going to overlap it and make sure those seams sort of like line up. And we will do a zigzag stitch across there. And then you also want to attach it to the top of your triangle. You want to put it right sides together. And the reason we're doing this right sides together is because both of these are cut edges, so neither of them are really decorative, whereas in the front we do have a nice scallop. So we're going to put these right sides together and sew that with 1/4 of an inch straight stitch as well. So once you have those straps attached, you have something that looks a lot like a bra. So we have one final step that we need to do, and that is to apply more of this elastic, though like I said, skinny elastic would be better. This is the inside of the bra. So what we're going to do is take that elastic, we're going to apply it on the edge of both of the cups in the front, like so, using a zigzag stitch, and continuing along the back. So we came down from the cup here, and then we can continue along the back. We're going to cover up this raw edge from the racer back around front to meet ourselves where we started. So just one little loop that goes all the way around there. So I like to apply this from the inside of the bra. And I don't really pin it at all. I just put the elastic on. I don't even want to put very much tension, if any tension at all, on the elastic if I can help it, and just sew along that with a zigzag stitch. So here you can see I've started it going. I just want to be sort of close to that scallop edge, but I don't want this to peek over the scalloped edge. We can always come back in after the fact and trim the lining down a little bit if it's peeking out. So once you have done that, your bralette is finished. You can see, so this just runs all the way around the front and continues along the back like this. Well, that concludes our bralette sew along. Hopefully you have something that looks a little bit like this. I am just in love with this combination of the peach against my skin tone. I think it makes the perfect sort of spring summer bra that you don't mind if somebody sees a little peek of it, because it really is that gorgeous. I hope you guys have enjoyed this tutorial, and I can't wait to see what sort of creations you've made using these instructions. Until next time, take care.